Hello. Sorry, I forgot my clicker. They're like, do you have a clicker? Hi, everyone. It is great to be here. Today, we're going to talk about something that is foundational for every company. It is how to position yourself to win in a very competitive market, how to stand out. The world has never been full of so many options. Options for tech companies, options for software, options for even the damn products we buy every single day. And we've got to figure out a way to stand out. And so we're going to talk about ways to differentiate your brand, to stand out amongst competition, and at the very least, how to answer that pesky question when a CEO comes to you and says, should we create a category? Should we just do that? Should we just do something easy like that? So for me, defining your company identity is so crucial. This sort of company identity exercise is something that I take every company through when I join, whether it's something that they've done before and we need to kind of freshen it up or solidify it, or if it's we need to create it from scratch. So our goal here in creating a company identity, it's crucial because it's the foundation, it's sort of what you build upon, right? It dictates your product roadmap. It dictates what you're going to build and when you're going to build it. It dictates your sales pitch decks. It helps inform your investor pitch decks. And it helps inform your marketing strategy. So I'm biased. I'm a marketing leader. And this has been acutely painful for me as a marketing leader, is if the company doesn't have this solidified, I don't know what to say. If you don't know who you are, what you do, and why it matters, marketing has a really hard time telling your story. So marketing tends to be the squeaky wheel in this regard, and this is really, really important. It's important for every company, but especially if your company is changing something. So if you're going through, maybe you were one thing for one type of customer and you're going multi-product, you're launching more products, you're launching more services, it's important if you're maybe, I don't know, going through M&A, acquiring a couple companies, you have to redefine who you are when you do that. Or maybe you've been around for a long time and you need to rebuild your brand to kind of stand out with competition. You need to go through this exercise. So today we're going to go through a really simplified framework of what to consider when you're defining your category, how to best position your products and services, and how to build compelling thought leadership. So let me first talk about category creation. I love this one. I think every single company that I have joined, this has been the first question somebody asks. Like, what is our category? Should we category create? My answer is always, it depends. It depends. And because there are incredible pros to creating a category, right? The first one being, you get to differentiate yourself from your competitors. If you have a ton of competitors, if your space is muddy, this is a great way to be like, well, we're not like them. We do something else. We do something new. We do something special. It's a great way to establish brand affinity. So if you've, again, been a company that's been around and you don't have like a ton of brand affinity, it's a great way to kind of wake up the market to a new company, to a sort of a new sentiment when it comes to your company. It gives you pricing power, right? Because you're no longer looked at as sort of this line item, right? Of like, okay, we've budgeted this amount of money for this certain line item. We can't go above or beyond that. If it's a new category, it's like, well, I wouldn't know. I don't know how much I should pay for that. It sounds great. And it also gives you long-term marketing leadership. It means that you're constantly leading the conversation. Now, there are cons to category creation. There's a very, very famous company in Utah that went through this exercise, and they went through this exercise with an agency. And I actually talked to this agency when I joined my latest company to kind of figure out what category creation could look like for us. It's expensive. It's so expensive. It's not even like a $200K, like, finance, can you find that in the budget for me? Let me move some things around. I think the CFOs in the audience are like, we do not want to work with this woman. It's not just $200K. It is a lot. Like, it's a budget item that you're going to have to go to your board and explain why you want to do this because it's that big of an investment. So it's high risk and it's high cost. It also could not be adopted. Like, we've seen so many companies that have tried to make certain things a thing, and it may not be adopted. It may be slow to adoption or it may not get adopted at all. It also places an insane amount of burden. An insane amount of burden on you as the company because you now have to explain this new thing to your audience, and it places burden on your audience that now has to absorb that new information and start looking at you in this new lens. And honestly, at the end of the day, your competitors can just copy. Like, you go through this whole exercise, you category create, and you're like, the differentiation. Now we've left competitors in the dust. And then they all catch up. And you know what? They did it for free because you already spent all the money to do it. You already gave them the template. So there are pros and cons. Let's go through a couple of case studies about category creation. My favorite example is Qualtrics. I started in 2011 at Qualtrics. I wasn't here when they went through their category creation, but if you all take a step back and you think about like, ooh and ah, Qualtrics, Utah, Ryan Smith, they're literally just surveys if you really think about it, right? It's just surveys. It's just surveys. So back in the day, it was like SurveyMonkey did the same thing. It was just surveys. And then all of a sudden, they went through category creation and they created experience management. All of a sudden, they created this space where whatever experience you're giving versus what your consumers think they're receiving, there's a gap. There's a gap, and that is where surveys come in and help you inform what that gap looks like and what experience you want to deliver for your consumers. This was brilliant. It was brilliant because it was just surveys. And all of a sudden, when they created this category, they rose up their buyers, their market research professionals, these people that were kind of just like shoved in the back corner of companies, became like thought leaders at their companies. They became leaders. All of a sudden, chief experience officers became a really popular title and role at these companies. It changed an entire industry. Now, on the consumer side, this is my favorite consumer side example. Does everyone know about Casper mattresses? Casper, yep. Mattresses, that's what they sold. And like how many times do you buy a mattress in your lifetime? Like once every 10 years? They went through a category creation exercise and emerged as a sleep company. That was their new category. They were no longer a mattress company, they were a sleep company. So all of a sudden, I was looking at Casper in the context of my sleep routine. I wasn't just thinking about the once every 10-year mattress purchase. I started to think about, oh, maybe I want their glow lights on the nightstand next to me. Maybe I want the nice pet beds or the cooling sheets, right? I'm thinking about this company in a new lens, and it gave them the right to go multi-product. It gave them the right to have multiple and many SKUs. Now, I want to go through this case study, Weave. I worked for Weave for a couple of years with a couple of people in the audience, and Weave was interesting. It started as appointment reminders for dentists, right? Sort of one type of thing for one type of customer. And like all tech companies, you start to eat up more pieces of that workflow. So we've started to own things like online forms or payments, and we struggled to figure out what to call this new software. We went multi-product, we had to go through this experience. And we landed on the remote business toolbox. Now, I think this was a tough category because it was really broad. All of a sudden, you're having to explain more about what you don't do versus what you do. So when you think about your category, it has to make sense. It has to sort of resonate in a way where you're explaining what you do. Because the remote business toolbox, people are asking questions like, well, I can run my whole business on Weave? And it's like, well, no, we don't do payroll. Well, no, it's not HR software, right? We went too broad. This was an example of category creation that didn't quite land. Category creation is expensive, it's costly. When done right, it's worth it. So when people ask me this question of like, should I category create? My answer is usually, well, let's try something else first. Let's try your product positioning. Let's at least look at how you position your offerings and products, and let's see if we can get that a little bit clearer. See if we can get some leverage with that before going through this like whole category creation exercise. I'm actually gonna jump ahead. Can we go back slides if I jump ahead? Yes? Anyone? Okay. So let me orient around what product positioning is, because it's my favorite thing in the whole world. I'm a product marketer, so this is my background. But once I show you this, you'll never be able to not see this. So for every website that you interact with, everything you purchase, every tech company you evaluate, you go to their top nav, and you go down to the drop down, and you're like, what do they do? What are they offering? That's their product positioning. And I think it's fascinating. I love looking at this. So I want to give you an example to kind of help root what product positioning is with a company that I work with a lot, Lululemon. I love Lululemon. So when you go to Lululemon's website and you go to the product dropdown, you can search women's clothing, right? You can search for shorts or sports bras or leggings or whatever. But this assumes that I know what I'm looking for. This assumes that your buyers already know what they're looking for. And they would guess right, because I am always looking for leggings. But when you do this type of product positioning, you click on leggings, you'll notice they have to feature battle. They have to feature battle with the other providers of leggings. They have to tell you why Their Align fabric is better than this company's leggings. They have to tell you why Wonder Under is better than this, or Wonder Train is this. Once you get to this point where it's very familiar, people are looking for leggings, you get into a feature battle. The other thing that they have done is down at the bottom here, if you scroll down a little bit. They've also done this based off of the goals that you have as a consumer. So for me, I can be like, oh, well, I'm getting into running. I want to click on running, and then they surface me all these products that might be available to me based off my goals. This is a really great distinction for you to make sure that your product positioning is speaking to their goals, not just about what you do and what you offer. Can we go back like 3 slides, two or 3 slides, I think? Maybe? Anyone? Oh, amazing, thank you. Bueller? Okay, there we go. All right, so this is the company I'm currently at. Recharge, it's been around for 10 years. They do subscriptions for consumer-priced goods, or consumer packaged goods, consumables. They do subscriptions for like your deodorant or your toilet paper or whatever. Recharge has an interesting problem because 10 years is a long time to be around as a company. So pretty much everyone in the market has used us or has heard of us or has some sort of like already identified perception of us, right? So we had to go through this exercise of like, okay, how do we show up in a new way? Where we landed was, we actually just landed back on what we are, the #1 subscription platform when we thought about our category, because we were already the category queen. We had already had 20,000 brands, which was more than any other competitor. And so we were like, why category create if we're already the category queen? So we landed on this. We landed on the #1 subscription platform, powering smarter subscription experiences, and we kind of went from there with our company identity. And this is something else to consider. Like, again, if you're the category queen, you might not want to category create. We're about 9 months in, 10 months into this, and we're rethinking it. So when you think about a company identity exercise, it's not just sort of like a one and done, and you're just going to let that sit for a couple of years. Like, you need to continually readdress that. And I would say shelf life is 12 to 18 months, depending on and how fast your corporate strategy is changing and how many products you're building. But it's something you have to continually readdress. So the key with product positioning that I see a lot of companies miss is with your product positioning, the way that you present your products or your offerings, you focus too much on what you do. Like, oh, we build this amazing product. I just want to tell everybody what we do. And you forget to tell what you do for them. You forget to root your offerings in their goals, in your buyer or audience's goals. Already went through that. Okay, let's go through a couple of case studies of how you can do product positioning. So let's look at ClickUp. ClickUp actually does product positioning in a way that I call jobs to be done. So when you go to ClickUp's dropdown, you can see that they're like project management, resource management, collaboration. These are things that are part of my day-to-day. Like if I'm a project manager, if I'm a program manager, these are things that I know I need to do every single day. So I can look at this website and I can see clearly like, oh, I do those things every single day, and they list kind of features within that. This is the jobs to be done framework. Klaviyo. Klaviyo has done it based off of features and capabilities. People kind of tend to know what Klaviyo is in e-commerce. It's a really big company. So they don't necessarily need to make that bridge really easy. They can just sort of list the features that they do. Oh, we do email, we do SMS, we do segmentation. Like it's kind of just like, I know what Klaviyo does. Can I come to this website and validate again what they do? That's the approach they took. HubSpot has actually done the framework of by your audience or buyer. If you have a multi-audience, like you sell to many different industries, you sell to many different personas, you sell to many different roles or titles at a company, this is a good route to take. HubSpot has sort of, are you marketing? Are you operations? Are you sales? It's a quick way for me to navigate my experience on their website. The last one actually is an old Mutiny. Their website's been, I had to go in the Wayback Machine and pull this one because they've changed it since. Again, change your product positioning often. This one is a little bit more about goals. Now this one's so great. Like if I'm talking to my demand leader and I'm like, I need our website conversion to go up. I need better leads, right? I can see that immediately when I go to their product dropdown. And that's also the other framework is by goals, by the things that people want to accomplish in their roles. Now, Atlassian's my favorite one. I feel like I always stalk their website just to see what they're doing. We call this one Bag of Tools. Woof. This one is so fun. So when it comes to M&A, like there's like the Adobe model where you just kind of roll over companies and they all become boring things like Adobe Experience Engine or Adobe Marketing Cloud, right? Atlassian, the way that they've done mergers and acquisitions is they've just kind of taken that cool thing and they're like, well, now you're ours now. But they've held on to the branding. They've held on to the branding. So you've got Jira, you've got Trello on there. You can see Loom is a recent one. So it's funny to see what they've done. They've kept the branding, but you see the icons, the kind of blue icons, that's how they sort of said, this is part of the Atlassian family. Even though these have nothing to do with what we do and we decided not to go the product route or jobs to be done route, it's just these companies we've acquired, they've made it kind of part of their product positioning with those icons. And you can see Loom is still an outlier. I think eventually that will be a nice little gray and blue icon in the next 6 to 9 months because that was their strategy. Now, I want to talk about thought leadership. Once you've sort of established who your company is and what you do, the onus now is on you to create the world in which your solution is the only one that will work. The best way to predict the future is, maybe I wrote this down wrong, guys. The best way to predict the future is to, I think it was, is to make it, create it, sorry. So this one was, once you've created this, you now have to go out into the world and tell why this is so important. So when I first started working in marketing, I remember I had to write 2 to 3 blog posts a month that were thought leadership. And I was like 23. I was like, I don't know what thought leadership is. So I would just like Google things and write. I thought it was just people pontificating on all these different thoughts. Where I have found the best thought leadership is at the intersection of expertise, innovation, and education. It sits right at the center of what is happening, what's the bigger picture, what's happening in the market, what's happening in society, what's happening in sort of the broader story. Innovation, what do you do? What do you do uniquely? And education, what is the pain that your buyer is feeling? And hitting that right there is making a world in which your solution is the only one that works. So I want to go through an example of what thought leadership has looked like for my most recent company, Recharge, that's been really helpful for us as we've created sort of like a brand uplift for the company. So again, Recharge does subscriptions. And when I first joined the company, I was like, oh, Recharge doesn't do subscriptions. They power routines. Because I thought about all the products that I purchase every single day, and I was like, these are part of my routine. And so I usually start something like, okay, earlier this summer I was talking to a brand. I was talking to a brand who had come off of all of these rounds of investor calls. And you know what the number one question they were asked is? Who is your ideal customer profile? And it's so interesting when I think about this. I think about how many times I have led a team through sort of who your ideal customer persona is. And typically you come out with persona cards that look like this, right? Sometimes they're called like Tech Savvy Ted or Busy Bonnie. This one's called Juggling Jen because Jen is juggling a lot. And you'll see, this one works for us because it's such a great way to do an intro slide without being really basic and boring. So we worked it into the thought leadership, right? And so I usually go through something like this. Jen is an elder millennial. She's getting up there. So she's already worried about what time and gravity are doing to her body. She lives in Salt Lake City, so her skin is constantly ravaged by the dry desert sun. She's busy, she's got a busy big girl job, and she has a daughter. She has a very moody teenage daughter who is just as busy as she is, minus the ability to drive herself anywhere. So there is a 99% chance when you call Jen, she's in her car on I-15, truly. So this is me, I'm juggling Jen. The older I get, the less time I have. Time is by far my most precious resource because I want all of the benefits of and all the good things in life without having to like work too hard for them. I want to automate my life. So in short, I am busy, I am bougie, and I hold majority purchasing power for my household. So you think my husband cares what toilet paper we buy? No, he does not. It's me. I make those decisions. And I am an ideal consumer for our brands because I love a good product. I love a good product because I'm not purchasing products, I'm buying the brand promise. That's what I'm buying. I'm buying healthy skin, I'm buying glossy hair, I'm buying a seamless morning routine. But the question is, when I purchase these products, and it doesn't take much to acquire me as a customer, it just takes like a really compelling Instagram ad and I'm sold. But will I renew? Will I purchase again? Will I add this to my routine? I don't know. When my Instagram looks like this, and my YouTube looks like this, right? Build the ideal wellness routine, build the best skincare routine, wake up at 4 a.m., here's why. I am constantly chasing the dragon. I'm constantly chasing what is going to get me to my goals. Now, this is a nice way to kind of show brands what the competition looks like, what they're competing with. Again, we sell to consumer goods. We sell to brands like skincare and coffee. This is what they're up against when they're selling to their consumers. Let me go through this fun thing. I'm a fickle consumer, so I have purchased 9 different sunscreens in the last year. I've tweaked my skincare routine 14 different times. I've switched from tea to coffee to matcha to tea, and now I'm off caffeine, which is wild. I have tried every protein vehicle out there. I've tried the chips, I've tried the cookies, I've tried every possible option. I'm really into supplements because that's a really great way to get everything you need in a really nice, easy way. I've tried 5 different meal plan services, and well, I've tried 2 different cat litters because once you find a cat litter you love, you don't really shake it up. You're pretty happy. So this has emerged in consumer behavior as a really important distinction between a product that is bought and a product that is kept, right? So again, we're using this to kind of show what's at stake for brands. What's at stake is being a one-time purchase versus a purchase that's purchased over and over and over again in somebody's daily routine. So I think about your bathroom at home. I think about these products that are like on top of your counter next to soap. Those are good products. Those are products that are kept. Those are products that are part of your routine. Think about the products that are like underneath this bathroom sink, like next to extra toilet paper. Those are not products that are part of your routine. Like those are products you just didn't want to throw away. This is high stakes for brands, is being a product that is kept versus a product that's bought. The bathroom hierarchy really tells all between a product that's a nice to have and a need to have. And the ability to be a product that is kept versus bought all relies on their opportunity to adapt and take action on the routine economy. So the routine economy is something we've used as sort of that bigger picture. We talked about expertise as your thought leadership. You gotta talk about the bigger picture. You gotta talk about what's going on. So this was our attempt, was the routine economy. And the routine economy means that right now in society, the 40-year-old millennial and the 24-year-old Gen Z are in charge. I was doing research for this and I found out that millennials are solidly considered middle-aged now. I know, no one liked that. Everyone was like, no one likes that at all. But this means that we have made this huge change in the way consumers are choosing and purchasing products, right? They're in charge. These 2 groups are in charge. They're in charge of spending, influence, the economy. Millennials specifically have become the economic driving force in America. They hold the most purchasing power. They make up the biggest percentage of the country's workforce. And they're the largest generation. And in order to plug into this, we kind of go through today's consumers choosing to purchase small luxuries to elevate their every single day. And usually I go through lots of different stats about what actually they're purchasing, their anxiety, things like that. But the end is to show that these 2 buyers are purchasing things that elevate their everyday lives, to sit at their routine, to show what the opportunity is. So again, this slide was to show that we went through sort of the challenge and why it's so high stakes, and now this is what your opportunity is as a brand, is to understand somebody's routine and to be part of it, to really understand that intersection between convenience and value. Because society is scary and people are choosing little treats. It's little treat culture, right? It's like, oh, I did my taxes, I deserve a little treat. I went to the grocery store, I'm gonna go to Starbucks and buy a $9 matcha. This is the type of sort of economical and societal trends that we need to start taking advantage of if we're gonna win, if you're a brand that's going to win. So today's buyer is splurging on luxury goods to soothe their economic despair. For younger generations, financial goals like buying a house or saving for retirement can feel really out of reach. And so millennials specifically are doom spending to cope. It's rough out here. Whereas Gen Z are really purchasing and splurging because they're facing an overall disenchantment with society and capitalism as a whole. Gen Z's penchant for splurging comes from this desire to live life to the fullest. They're embracing this mentality of well, I'm gonna buy that because what really matters anyway? This is where consumer behavior is driving us. And so what this means is the economic value is changing. The fabric of our economy is changing. We started in a goods and services economy. So when you think about the rise of D2C brands, which again is mostly our buyers for Recharge, they started in a goods and services economy, but the internet became the biggest driver of commoditization because it was so easy to instantly compare products. You could compare products to products instantly, and it drove everyone to care about three things and three things only: price, price, and price. So everyone prioritized D2C, prioritized direct-to-consumer, prioritized owning the end-to-end journey, but then they found themselves competing in the attention economy. Again, finding relevance within your buyers. Every single buyer of Recharge is facing high acquisition costs. So this was our attempt to touch on that, saying like, hey, you're actually spending more than you ever have to just acquire a new customer. There just isn't enough attention to go around. And so this is sort of our solution. This is the world in which our solution is the only one that works, the routine economy, is understanding that you need to be a product that's not only bought, but kept as part of somebody's routine. Products that are embedded in my daily life, products that solve the problems of my day-to-day, make my life easier, and give me little moments of delight, little treats. Then we go through our product sort of like breakdown of like subscription management and how we orient our products and features around that, to again echo that our solution is the only one that works. And then we nailed this home. This is the last piece of our thought leadership was, we have about 20,000 brands, and so the research shows that a one-time purchaser purchases more upfront, your AOV is a little bit higher, but your LTV is much higher in your subscribers. Now this has been fascinating to me because tech went to subscriptions in like 2011, so it was wild to me that these commerce brands like still haven't got it, but we were like, we gotta nail this home. So even though you take a hit on one time with a subscriber, they're gonna pay themselves off tenfold, and that keeps getting bigger. And then we usually say a little joke like, Recharge pushing subscriptions, groundbreaking. But it pays off. It really pays off. It pays off in GMV, that the more that you invest in your subscribers versus one-time purchasers, the more your GMV is going to grow. And that the fun thing about that is that your gap keeps getting wider. So lastly, I wanted to talk about a couple of marketing extras that we kind of used for this thought leadership. So that was our thought leadership keynote. That is what we then went out to every single industry conference and spoke about. I have given that keynote so many times, I don't think I can do it again. But that's your goal. If you figure out what you do and what you do very well and why it matters, you've got to go tell people why it matters. You've got to figure out where your buyers are. Ours tend to be at trade shows and events, and so that's where we went. That's where we showed up. We also created a commercial. We did a video that showed an everyday person's routine with a daughter and sort of how they make their coffee in the morning and how they change out the cat litter. This was a huge piece for us as well to, again, nail home what we do and why it matters to their consumers. And then we launched this really big campaign. This campaign we called the Tomorrow Brand Challenge. Our hypothesis is that Shopify has democratized commerce. It's never been easier to start a brand, but 50% of brands fail within like 4 years. And so our bet was we want to make brands that last because they've invested in subscribers. And so we're giving away about $1 million in prizes for people to invest in their subscription experience. Now, this campaign was really important for us, is very important for us, because subscriptions is core to our business. So what is the best way we can incentivize that is by up-leveling this importance for companies and rewarding the teams that build that. So we're giving away, like $100,000 to a couple of brands. We're giving away a brand trip. Like, we wanted to make sure this was very merchant-friendly, but also drove the outcome that we wanted. So it resonated a little bit more, it was a little bit easier to digest as our audience. So those were kind of like the three-pronged approach we took when it comes to company identity, product positioning, thought leadership, and then getting out into the world. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks, everyone.